trust is the foundation of every meaningful connection we have. It's what turns casual encounters into lifelong friendships, fleeting alliances into unwavering partnerships, and hesitation into confidence. But trust isn't an abstract ideal, it's built one action at a time, through deliberate choices and consistent behaviors. Today, I want to share with you 7 powerful elements that create, sustain, and sometimes repair trust. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define who we are, what we stand for, and how we expect to be treated. They're the quiet, firm declarations of our worth, and they shape every interaction we have, whether we realize it or not. To build trust, boundaries must be respected, not as rules to follow, but as expressions of our humanity. When I honor your boundaries, I am saying, I see you, I hear you, and I respect your right to be yourself. Boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're about saying yes to the things that matter most. When someone tells you where their limits are, it's not a rejection, it's an invitation to connect authentically within those limits. It's an act of courage to set boundaries, especially in a world that sometimes mistakes them for selfishness or weakness. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of love. They protect our time, energy, and mental well-being, allowing us to show up fully for others without resentment or burnout. Think about how trust feels in relationships where boundaries are clear and honored. There's no guessing game, no walking on eggshells, no confusion about what's okay and what's not. Boundaries provide clarity and freedom. They allow us to relax, knowing that the relationship is built on mutual respect rather than silent compromises or unspoken expectations. On the other hand, when boundaries are ignored or dismissed, trust begins to erode. If someone consistently crosses the lines we've drawn, whether through words, actions, or even subtle dismissals, we start to feel unseen, unheard, and undervalued. And it works both ways. When we fail to communicate our own boundaries, we unintentionally teach others that our needs don't matter. This doesn't just harm trust, it harms the relationship's foundation. Building trust through boundaries means stepping into the discomfort of honest conversations. It means saying, here's what I need, and being willing to hear the same from others. It means accepting that not everyone will agree with or understand our boundaries, and that's okay. Boundaries aren't about pleasing others, they're about protecting what allows us to thrive. When we respect boundaries, we communicate safety. We say, you can count on me not to take advantage of your time, energy, or emotions. I value you enough to listen, to adjust, and to honor what you need. And when we set our own boundaries, we model what trust and self-respect look like in action. Trust built on boundaries is not fragile, it's resilient. It's a trust that acknowledges the individuality of each person while creating space for a connection that feels safe, respectful, and deeply meaningful. Reliability is the quiet cornerstone of trust. It's not flashy or loud, it doesn't demand attention. Instead, it whispers in the background, creating a steady rhythm of dependability that others can lean on. To be reliable is to be a person of your word, someone whose actions consistently align with their promises. It's about doing what you say you'll do, not just once but over and over, until it becomes a defining part of who you are. Think about the relationships in your life where trust feels unshakable. Chances are those people have shown up for you time and again, not just in grand moments, but in the everyday ones. They're the ones who call when they say they will, who follow through on commitments, and who show consistency even when it's inconvenient. Reliability isn't about perfection, it's about effort and intentionality. It's about building a track record that says, you can count on me. Reliability also means managing what we commit to. It's not reliable to overpromise and then underdeliver. In fact, doing so creates cracks in trust that can take years to repair. When we say yes to too much, we risk breaking trust with others and with ourselves. True reliability often requires the courage to say no when we know we can't show up fully. It's about being honest, upfront, and realistic about our time, energy, and capacity. In relationships, reliability creates safety. It removes uncertainty and allows others to relax in our presence. When people know they can depend on us, they don't have to carry the extra weight of doubt or second guessing. They can focus on connection instead of questioning whether we'll follow through. Reliability also means being present. It's not just about doing what you said you would do, but doing it with attention and care. If we're physically there but emotionally or mentally checked out, our presence doesn't hold the same weight. Reliability asks us to show up not just in body but with our whole selves, ready, attentive, and committed. But reliability isn't easy. Life gets messy. and things don't always go as planned. Being reliable doesn't mean never failing, it means owning our failures when they happen. If we drop the ball, reliability asks us to acknowledge it, apologize sincerely, and make it right. Repairing trust is part of being trustworthy. It's not about pretending we're flawless, but about proving that even when we falter, we're still committed to the relationship. When we're reliable, we send a powerful message: your trust in me is well placed, and when others are reliable, they give us the gift of certainty in an uncertain world. Reliability is the heartbeat of trust, steady and dependable, creating the foundation for connections that last. It's in the little things: showing up on time, keeping a promise, checking in when we said we would. That trust is built, one small act at a time. Accountability is the willingness to own our actions, choices, and their consequences, both good and bad. It's the ability to say, "That's on me," without deflecting, denying, or diminishing our role in what's happened. Accountability builds trust because it shows others that we value honesty and integrity more than preserving our ego. It's not about perfection, it's about responsibility. In every relationship, mistakes are inevitable. Words are misinterpreted, expectations are unmet, and feelings are hurt. What determines whether trust survives those moments is accountability. It takes courage to admit when we've fallen short. It takes humility to acknowledge the impact of our actions on someone else. But when we step up and own our part, we create a space for healing and repair. Accountability says, "I value this relationship enough to make things right." Accountability also means being proactive, not waiting for someone else to call us out. It's about self-reflection and being willing to ask, did I contribute to this issue? Could I have handled this better? Trust grows when people see that we don't need to be cornered into taking responsibility. Instead, we take the initiative to make amends because it aligns with our values. It's important to understand that accountability isn't just about apologizing, it's about action. An apology without change is empty. True accountability includes making an effort to learn from the mistake and do better moving forward. It's about showing through our behavior that we're committed to growth, not just damage control. But accountability is a two-way street. Just as we expect it from others, we have to create an environment where it's safe for people to admit when they're wrong. If we react with harshness, judgment, or blame, we discourage accountability and replace it with defensiveness. Trust thrives in relationships where people feel they can own their mistakes without fear of rejection or retaliation. Accountability also involves setting boundaries with ourselves. It's about recognizing when we've taken on too much or when our actions are out of alignment with our values. It requires us to pause and course correct before things spiral further. This self-accountability is just as crucial as the accountability we demonstrate to others because it keeps us grounded and consistent. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of accountability is its ability to repair what's been broken. When we mess up, there's often a gap between what happened and what should have happened. Accountability bridges that gap. It's a way of saying, I see the harm caused, and I'm committed to making it right. This act of taking responsibility doesn't just restore trust, it deepens it. People feel safer with those who can acknowledge their humanity and are willing to grow from their mistakes. Ultimately, accountability isn't about blame, it's about building bridges. It's about creating connections rooted in honesty, respect, and a shared commitment to the truth. In a world where it's often easier to deflect or deny, accountability stands as a profound act of courage and integrity. It tells the people around us, you can trust me, not because I'll always get it right, but because when I don't, I'll do everything in my power to make it right. The vault is the sacred space of trust where confidentiality is both honored and protected. It's the promise that what is shared in vulnerability will remain safe, and that someone's personal story or truth will never be used as currency for connection with others. The vault is not just about keeping secrets, it's about creating an environment where people feel secure enough to be authentic without fear of betrayal or exploitation. Imagine sharing something deeply personal with someone only to hear it repeated later by another person. That sting of betrayal isn't just about the information being shared, it's about the violation of trust, the realization that your vulnerability wasn't treated with the respect it deserved. The vault ensures that doesn't happen. It says, your story is yours and it's not mine to share. But the vault isn't just about holding on to what someone tells us, it also means resisting the temptation to gossip. Gossip may seem harmless on the surface, but it's a trust killer in disguise. If someone hears us sharing private details about another person, even if those details aren't damaging, they learn that their own confidences might not be safe with us. Trust requires integrity, and the vault is a test of that integrity. Maintaining the vault also means being clear about boundaries. If someone shares something with us in confidence, we don't pass it on even if it's under the guise of seeking advice or helping them. We honor their story by keeping it where it belongs between us and them. It's not our job to decide what others need to know. That decision lies solely with the person who trusted us enough to share. The vault goes beyond words. It's not just about what we say, but about how we act. It's about showing others through our behavior that their trust is well placed. When we hold confidences, we demonstrate respect for the person and their story. This respect is foundational to building deeper, more meaningful connections. Yet the vault isn't always easy. There are moments when we might feel pressure to share something to fit in, to fill an awkward silence, or to prove our closeness with someone else. In those moments, the strength of our character is tested. Choosing to honor the vault, even when it's inconvenient or tempting not to, is what separates trust builders from trust breakers. And let's not forget self-awareness in this process. The vault also requires us to reflect on how we manage our own boundaries and disclosures. Are we entrusting our stories to people who have proven themselves worthy, or are we oversharing in hopes of building connection too quickly? Trust works both ways, and part of respecting the vault is ensuring we don't hand over our own keys carelessly. When we protect the vault, we send a powerful message: I value your trust, and I respect your story. Over time, this creates a culture of safety, where people feel seen, heard, and supported without fear of judgment or betrayal. The vault isn't just about keeping things private, it's about safeguarding the bonds of trust that allow us to be vulnerable, authentic, and connected. It's a practice of honoring both the person and the relationship, and in doing so, it becomes a cornerstone of trust that cannot be easily shaken. Integrity is the anchor of trust, the quality that grounds us in authenticity, accountability, and moral courage. It's the alignment of our words, actions, and values, a steadfast commitment to doing what is right even when it's hard, uncomfortable, or goes unnoticed. Integrity is not situational. It doesn't shift based on convenience or circumstances. It is a consistent demonstration of character, the unwavering decision to stand in truth, and the refusal to compromise on principles. At its core, integrity is about living authentically. It asks us to be the same person in private as we are in public, to let our actions reflect our beliefs without contradiction. It's about showing up as whole and honest, not fragmented by fear or dishonesty. People trust those who are consistent, who aren't swayed by the pressures of the moment but remain grounded in their values. Integrity provides that consistency, creating a foundation of trust that can withstand life's inevitable challenges. Integrity is often tested in the small, everyday choices we make. It's easy to think about doing the right thing in monumental moments, but true integrity shows up in the little things: returning the extra change when a cashier makes a mistake, standing up for someone who isn't in the room, or speaking the truth even when it's inconvenient. These small acts of integrity build a pattern of trustworthiness that others can rely on. But integrity isn't just about actions, it's about intention. Why we do something matters just as much as what we do. If our actions stem from a place of self-interest or manipulation, even if they appear good on the surface, they lack integrity. True integrity comes from a place of alignment between our values and our behavior, where what we do is a reflection of who we are at our core. Integrity also requires courage, the courage to stand firm in our beliefs when others disagree, to say no when something conflicts with our values, and to admit when we've fallen short. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest. Integrity is not afraid to own its flaws because it understands that truthfulness is more valuable than the appearance of perfection. When we acknowledge our mistakes and take responsibility for them, we don't weaken trust, we strengthen it. Living with integrity also means resisting the lure of shortcuts or compromises that might benefit us temporarily but undermine trust in the long term. It requires a long-term vision and understanding that what we build with honesty and consistency will outlast anything achieved through deceit or betrayal. Trust built on integrity is not just resilient, it is enduring. In relationships, integrity creates a safe space where others feel they can depend on us. When people see that we're willing to uphold our principles even when it's difficult, they learn that our trustworthiness isn't conditional. It's not tied to what's easy or convenient, it's tied to what's right. This kind of trust fosters deeper connections, where vulnerability can thrive and authenticity is celebrated. Integrity is not about grand gestures or public recognition, it's about the quiet, steady commitment to living with honesty and honor. It's about being a person others can trust to do the right thing, not because it's required, but because it's who we are. It's the invisible thread that holds relationships together, ensuring that trust is not just built, but sustained over time. Integrity isn't a single act, it's a way of being, a daily practice that defines how we show up in the world and in the lives of those we care about. Non-judgment is the tender ground where trust takes root and grows. It's the practice of holding space for someone without labeling, shaming, or categorizing their thoughts, feelings, or experiences. Non-judgment isn't about agreeing with everything someone says or does, it's about choosing to approach others with curiosity rather than criticism, with empathy rather than evaluation. It's an acknowledgement that we all carry stories, wounds, and complexities that deserve understanding, not condemnation. When someone feels the safety of non-judgment, they experience freedom, the freedom to speak their truth without fear of rejection or ridicule. It creates a space where vulnerability can flourish, where people can show up as their authentic selves without the need to mask or edit their emotions. Trust grows in this space because non-judgment communicates a profound message: you are safe here. You are seen, you are seen, you are valued, and you are accepted as you are. Non-judgment is not a passive act, it requires active listening and a deep sense of humility. It's choosing to listen to someone's story without formulating a response in our minds or rushing to conclusions. It's resisting the urge to fix, criticize, or offer unsolicited advice. Instead, it's about being fully present, allowing the person in front of us to feel heard and understood. But non-judgment isn't just about how we treat others, it's also about how we treat ourselves. The way we judge ourselves often mirrors how we judge those around us. If we are harsh, critical, or unforgiving with our own mistakes, it becomes difficult to extend grace to others. Practicing non-judgment means cultivating self-compassion, recognizing that imperfection is part of being human, and letting go of the unrealistic expectations we place on ourselves and those we care about. Non-judgment doesn't mean we abandon discernment or boundaries. It's not about ignoring harmful behaviors or excusing actions that hurt others. Instead, it's about separating a person's worth from their actions. It's understanding that people are more than their mistakes, more than their worst days, and more than the choices they regret. When we approach others with this mindset, we allow trust to deepen because we see the person, not just their behavior. There will be times when non-judgment is challenging, when we disagree, when we're hurt, or when someone's choices seem incomprehensible to us. In those moments, non-judgment asks us to pause and seek understanding rather than rushing to conclusions. It's the practice of asking, what might they be carrying that I can't see? What pain, fear, or hope might be driving their actions? This kind of curiosity softens our defenses and opens the door to empathy. Non-judgment also means letting go of the need to be right. Often judgment arises from a desire to assert our own perspective as the correct one. But trust isn't built on being right, it's built on being kind. When we release the need to prove a point or win an argument, we create a space where others feel valued for who they are, not for how well they align with our beliefs or expectations. Ultimately, non-judgment is an act of grace. It's the willingness to sit with someone in their mess, their struggle, or their joy without trying to change or control them. It's a commitment to meet people where they are and to let them know that they are enough, exactly as they are in that moment. When we practice non-judgment, we create relationships that are rich with trust, understanding, and unconditional love. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it because it allows us to connect in ways that are real, meaningful, and deeply human. Generosity is more than just an act of giving, it is a mindset, a way of being in the world. It transcends the simple exchange of material things and reaches into the realm of emotional, intellectual, and spiritual openness. To be generous is to offer our time, energy, and resources without expectation of return, not because we have to, but because we want to create space for others to thrive. It's a practice that enriches both the giver and the receiver, fostering connection and building a sense of shared humanity. Generosity is rooted in abundance, in the belief that there is enough to go around, that giving does not deplete us but rather nourishes us. When we give from a place of abundance, we remove the need for reciprocity or transactional thinking. Instead of keeping score or wondering what we will get in return, we give simply because it feels right. This kind of generosity creates trust because it communicates to others that we value them without any conditions attached. It says, I see you. I want to help. I am here for you. At its core, generosity is about seeing the needs of others and responding with kindness and compassion. It's the willingness to offer what we have, whether that's a listening ear, an encouraging word, or a helping hand. It's about showing up for others, not because it benefits us, but because we want to ease their burdens, celebrate their victories, or simply be present in their lives. The simplest acts of generosity, holding the door for someone, sharing a smile, sending a text to check in, can have a profound impact, making someone feel valued and cared for in a world that often feels disconnected. Generosity also involves the willingness to give of ourselves emotionally. It's the willingness to be vulnerable, to share our hearts, our stories, and our truths with others, without fear of judgment or rejection. This type of generosity builds trust because it invites others to do the same. When we offer our authentic selves, we create space for others to feel safe in doing the same, and that mutual openness deepens the connection between us. But generosity doesn't always have to be grand gestures or life-changing acts. In fact, the most impactful generosity often comes in the form of the little things. Offering someone a cup of coffee when they're having a rough day, offering our seat to someone on a crowded bus, or giving someone a sincere compliment when they least expect it. All of these small actions add up, creating a ripple effect of kindness and trust. The consistency of these small acts demonstrates a mindset of generosity that doesn't wait for a special occasion or dramatic moment, but instead integrates generosity into the fabric of daily life. Generosity also requires the courage to give without expectations. Sometimes when we give, we hope for something in return, whether it's appreciation, recognition, or even just a feeling of being needed. But true generosity asks us to let go of that expectation. It's not about receiving validation or acknowledgement for our actions, but about offering freely without strings attached. This kind of generosity builds a foundation of trust because it demonstrates that our giving is not motivated by a desire for control or validation, but simply by a genuine desire to help. In relationships, generosity fosters a culture of care and connection. When we consistently give to those around us, whether emotionally, physically, or mentally, we communicate that we value their well-being. This creates a safety net of support, where both parties know that they are seen, heard, and cared for. Trust grows in this space because generosity is a direct expression of love, care, and respect. Generosity also teaches us the power of vulnerability. It requires us to open ourselves up to others and to trust that our giving will not be taken for granted or used against us. And in turn, it encourages others to be generous in return, not out of obligation, but because they feel safe and valued. When we create a space where generosity is reciprocal, it transforms relationships, creating a dynamic of mutual support and understanding. Generosity, at its core, is an expression of humanity. It is our willingness to give without expecting anything in return, to offer what we have, whether it's time, energy, or love, because it is part of who we are. It is an act that transcends material wealth and touches on the essence of what it means to be human, to connect, to care, and to give. When we live with generosity, we build a life filled with trust, compassion, and love, both for others and for ourselves. Generosity is a mindset and way of being that goes beyond material giving, encompassing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual openness. It's rooted in abundance, where giving enriches both the giver and receiver. True generosity arises from a place of compassion, seeing the needs of others and responding with kindness without expecting anything in return. It builds trust by showing up authentically and offering ourselves freely, whether through small acts or profound gestures. Generosity fosters connection, creates a culture of care, and encourages vulnerability, transforming relationships into spaces of mutual support and understanding. Ultimately, it is an expression of love and humanity that deepens trust and enriches lives.